Okay, I don't need a microphone, or do I? Well, I'm going to call this meeting of the NMU Board of Trustees Finance Committee to order. Do we need to take roll, Kathy?
Yeah. Deb, do we need, I don't,
No?
Okay.
Okay, I believe we have all the committee members here. So without further ado, first item on our agenda is internal audit report from Jill Compton. Jill, take it away.
Thank you. You have before you the December 2022 open issues report. There are 2 items on the report. The first one carried forward from the prior report. It's concerning NCAA regulations, and Rick Comley was able to address those concerns in a timely manner. Those are considered complete. The second item has to do with Chief Information Security Officer policies. There have been some changes to the Graham-Leach-Bliley Act, which require us to dig deeper into our risk assessment of information technology. The audit department has worked with the information technology department and assessed the risk, and we have identified several policies that we will need to update based on that risk assessment. So John Mara is working with internal audit, reworking those policies to bring them into compliance. We believe we'll have them done by the end of January, although they're not required by regulation to be done until July 1st. Any questions on those findings? Yes.
What specific policies?
What specific policies? There is a requirement to have technology policies that ask for an annual risk assessment and to have a policy to address any breaches identified. We have those policies in place, but we'll be modifying them to address a few tweaky changes that the regulation requires. One of those being that John will have to address this board directly annually and report to you his assessment of risk at the university.
Can we get reports on breaches, or have we had breaches?
I wouldn't say that we've had breaches. Breaches is a very specific technical term. John and the IT department, Dave Mackey, monitor continuously for attempted breaches at the university.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. So questions, other questions or concerns?
Any others? None here. This is all we have from internal audit today, correct?
No, there's a proposed audit plan. Every year we put forward the list of audits that I'll be performing in the next calendar year.
Okay. Both of these, your open issues report and the audit plan, are going to require a motion to accept the report as written. I'd ask for that motion.
I'll make the motion that we accept the report as presented.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We need to do the same thing then for the audit plan. I don't know if you wanted to speak any further to the audit plan.
Sure. The 2023 proposed audit plan has 6 items on it. One of those is a carry forward from the prior year. In 2022, I was not able to complete the audit for construction contract control, so I'm carrying that forward. We do that every year. We reconcile what I promised to do for you with what I actually did for you and carry forward anything I was not able to complete. The other items are new and they come up because of the risk assessment that we performed at the university. And I think that you'll agree that the items here are something that we should look at this year, including banking security controls, cybersecurity awareness. We're going to take a look at the data controls in the registrar's office and also the safeguard rules that are related to Graham-Leach-Bliley.
Before I ask for a motion, just a question. I'm curious, these days, how much time does your office spend assisting the external auditors, would you estimate?
The external auditors are very generous in working with us, particularly when we have students. So if we have student interns, we spend a lot of time working with the external auditor. They help us launch competent accountants into the world. So they open up some of their work papers and let our students do that. This year we didn't have any students, so my coordination with external audit is working with Jamie, finding out what external audit is testing so that I don't duplicate the work.
Okay. Okay, well, thank you. Any other questions before I ask for the motion? I'll ask for the motion.
I'd like to move. Sorry, I wasn't expecting that.
All right.
Sorry.
Motion to accept the audit plan.
I'd like to move that we accept the audit plan as written.
Support.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
I,
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jill. Next on our agenda is Jamie Beauchamp with audit.
Yeah, got Jamie Beauchamp, Rebecca Schneiderhan, the Assistant Controller, and Bill Sheltrow from Anderson Tackman to walk through the CPB financials. Corporation for Public Broadcasting. And just so you know, this is a required filing that we have to do annually and have audited.
Okay.
My name is Bill Shelter. I'm with Anderson Tackman and Company. Thank you for the opportunity to present the results of the NMU TV and NMU FM audit June 30th, 2022. We issued an unqualified opinion as there were no audit scope issues. We found no departures in the GASB accounting, and the CPB reporting and attestation will be completed within the extended time parameters as required by CPB, which is the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. We used a risk-based audit approach, and we updated systems documentation, performed risk-based assessments. For efficiency's sake, we tested controls of cash disbursements, while for other transaction categories, we applied substandard audit-based techniques. Year-end fieldwork went within the timelines as put out with or communicated with the audit committee at preliminary fieldwork. Our report to management also came out clean. There were no issues to address from the prior year, and we found no material weaknesses. And in the communications with those charged with governance, we highlighted the adoption of the lease accounting standards that are going to play for the fiscal year ended June 30th, 2022. And we found no exceptional items to report. That's it.
Okay, good morning. I'd like to give you a brief summary then of the financial results for the WNMU TV and WNMU FM stations for fiscal year 22. So I'll start with the TV station, which would be on page 17 in your report, and that would be page number as noted at the bottom of the report page. So as you see, total assets of about $5.4 million, which increased by about $213,000 over the prior year. The primary drivers there is an increase in cash of about $400,000, just due to decrease in liabilities and timing of payments, and then a decrease in capital assets of about $144,000 due to depreciation in the year. A little bit further down, the total liabilities line, about $262,000. That decreased by about $322,000 from the prior year. And a couple items that drove that decrease, a decrease in the payable for the PPP grant. Now those were grants that we received back in the COVID time, and we were required to record them as a payable in the prior year. Then once they were forgiven by the government, then they would come off as a payable and be recorded as revenue. So those were forgiven and was recorded then as revenue in the current year. And then also the reduction of liabilities related to MEPSers, pension, and OPEB, which is just information that we receive directly from the state each year. So down at the bottom of that, you'll see the total net position of a little under 5.2 million. That increased by about 491,000 over the prior year. So it was a strong balance sheet at the end of the fiscal year for the TV station. Next, I would go to page 19, which is as noted at the bottom of the report page. That's a statement of revenues, expenses, and changes in net position, or the income statement. Operating revenue, you'll see at $958,000. That had a decrease of about $466,000 from the prior year, And that was mostly because in the prior year, we had the stimulus funding recorded there, so it was elevated in the prior year from the stimulus money. Operating expenses a little further down, 1.7 million. You'll see that remained flat. It decreased by about $14,000 from the prior year. A little further down, net non-operating revenues of 1.3 million. That decreased about $61,000 from the prior year. And that was really from two items. The capital grants line increased or decreased by about 136,000. And that was due to the grants we had for the repack program in the station. And so this year that was getting right down to the very end of that program. And then again, the increase in the revenue for the Paycheck Protection Program grant that I just discussed. So with that 491,000 strong year for the TV station, I would like to note that that 491,000 does also include that PPP grant and MEPSR's items. So if you were to exclude those, the TV station still had a increase of about $252,000 for that fiscal year. So, you know, still a real strong year for the TV station. Next would be for the FM station. And so there I would start on page 18 of your report. Total assets were about $928,000. That had a smaller decrease of about 70,000 from the prior year. And a few items there, a decrease in cash of about 56,000, decrease in investments just from the markets, and then a decrease in capital assets again from depreciation through the year. Total liabilities of about a little under 235,000. That decreased by about 320,000 from the prior year. That there are a couple items with that decrease in the payable for the PPP grant as it got taken off and recorded as revenue. The early retirement incentive program that was started back in 20, and so now this liability decreased because most of those have been paid off. So that liability decreased. And then the reduction of liabilities again with MEPSR's pension and OPEB items that we received from the state. So down at the bottom, the net position of about $656,000 decreased. Let's see, 656. Yeah, increased by about 209,000 over the prior year. And you'll see there was about a $226,000 increase in unrestricted net assets. So that's a strong balance sheet. And then finally, page 20, which would be the statement of revenues, expenses, and changes in net position for the FM station. Operating revenue of about $163,000, decreased by about $195,000 from the prior year, again due to that's where in the prior year the stimulus money was recorded there, so it was elevated. Operating expenses $821,000, so that decreased by about $188,000 from the prior year. And again, that was MEPSR's adjustments. And then also during the year, this is where you had the retirement of a longstanding station manager there. The operating revenue, $868,000, increased by about $48,000. And that mostly was due to recording revenue for the PPP grant. So at the bottom, the increase in the net position, $209,000. Which was a strong amount. And again, there I will mention that also included the PPP and the MEPSR's information. So if you exclude that, then it had a positive bottom line of about 33,000 for the year. So still a good positive year for the FM station. The remainder of the report, I'll just leave for you to review in your own time. And then I would just like to mention that, you know, both stations had a good positive year. And did real well under, you know, new management this year, new leadership in those stations with the retirement of in the prior year of two long-term station managers. So,
And this questions, then we'd need a motion to accept the report after any questions.
I'm ready to make a motion.
I have a question before we do that. Did you have any questions? Could you comment on the future CapEx needs of the stations? Is there anything significant forthcoming
Well,
you're aware of?
Pat, can you comment on that?
Probably the biggest things are gonna be the infrastructure, with the stations and the transmitters and the change to the new ATSC 3.
Could you speak up just a little bit,
Yeah,
please, Pat?
The biggest change will be, a lot of the equipment is 25, 30 years old. The transmitter, the way we get our broadcast out, but that's all changing with ATSC 3.0. The signals are gonna change from the way they've been distributed for years, more of an IP-based signal, and that's gonna be happening all over the country. So that's gonna be a big change. We're hoping there's gonna be some federal dollars that go along with that. Right now, it's not mandatory. It's not like when they switch from analog to digital. So for the TV side, that's gonna be a big thing. There is some money coming available soon for some of the infrastructure upgrades. So a lot of stations are finding that their 25, 30-year-old equipment needs to be updated. So they did approve a $40 million grant program that's gonna come up next year. And they're hoping that's gonna be a recurring grant because 40 million doesn't go too far for the 400 some stations that are gonna be applying for.
40 million to spread amongst 400.
Right. So
That's
they're
a drop in the bucket.
keep moving. So we're working on a plan to come up with our infrastructure needs. And that would be probably the biggest thing moving forward. We're in the same boat with the last station.
And that's sort of been typical on CPB as they end up with federal grants long-term. And that's how we've maintained their infrastructure as they're funded under the federal programs with Corporation for Public Broadcasting. A lot of them been NTIA grants that we've received. But that's how we've typically on their
So we're
radio
in
and
the early
TV.
stages of
Yeah.
this whole exercise.
Yeah.
You don't have any equipment though that for national security reasons, out, a la Huawei. that type of
No,
situation That we're dealing with.
Not Huawei, but since we're, one of our main missions is public service, the emergency alert system. That's a big emphasis for public broadcasting because first things to go down in a disaster are usually power and cell networks. The public broadcasting stations and a lot of public broadcasting, TV and radio are kind of the backbone because they run off generators and they're usually the signal that lasts longer. So federal government, the grant I mentioned is actually a FEMA grant that's going to be administered through the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. So there is that aspect of it that we're hoping we'll be able to rely on some funding.
So are we talking like 5 years, 10 years?
The first round is coming up next year. Just in a discussion about it, they're going to start talking about how to apply for it coming in the spring. And then we can kind of go from there.
Do we have any indication of total costs?
For ourselves, our engineers are working on that right now, trying to see where our biggest need is. I can tell you broadcasting isn't inexpensive. So like I said, 40 million sounds like a lot, but when you have 400 stations applying for it, it's not that much. So they're hoping it's a step in the right direction. They want to ask for 60 million the next year and they want to keep it going because there's a lot of stations in the same boat as us.
So is this something that you don't do it piecemeal? You literally do it all at one shot. So when you go for a grant, it's going to be like a major amount of money. It's not going to be, $500,000 here, 2 million a year later.
It could be. It's the whole system to get it from the station to broadcast out to the public. There's a chain of equipment that's in there. Some of it is newer and older than others. So it could be that. It could be focus on the highest need and then the next item in line. It doesn't have to be an all or nothing. It could be pieces along the way.
And it'll be turning to IP-based system as opposed to
Right.
traditional systems. So
Since we have you here, and this is I'm taking a little bit of liberty here. I apologize. I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I'm just curious. Could you estimate roughly how many students are involved at WNMU TV and FM?
I had to estimate how many.
Yeah.
You can include the sports broadcasting students that work with FM. Our public eye news program, which brings in not only broadcasting students, but students from all over. Students that work in our productions. I just gave a tour down there. Our productions rely on students. I would say we would encroach up into 40, 50 students directly. They're impacted that actually work or have their hands on equipment. Obviously, the sports broadcasting has been a huge boom with everything that's gone on with that, and we get a lot of students that are attracted to that. Our public eye news program is a huge program. We only have 2 paid positions. Most of them are volunteers. But as you know, anybody that watches TV, the big thing that people want to watch live is news and sports. So we've kind of focused on those areas, and so we rely on our students. It's not
Well,
we
thank
wouldn't be able
you.
to operate without them.
You know, you get a report like this, but knowing the number of students that it touches, I think really helps provide some good context to Bill's good work, his team's good work on the financial side. So thank you.
We're working on trying to include other departments with that as well. Reaching out to other, and we've got a lot of people that are interested as well. We're trying to get more students in.
Excellent. Thanks.
Anything else?
No, unless.
I'll make the
Thank
motion.
you.
So I'd be happy to at any time go through what we're using students or anything in a different. You can always get hold of me. Be happy to talk to anyone. Thanks.
Be careful of what you offer. Okay, with that, I would now ask for a motion to accept the external audit reports.
I make the motion that the external audit report be accepted as written.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you, Bill.
you.
Thanks, Bill, Jamie, Rebecca.
Item number 2 on our agenda, as written, is an update on budgets and key indicators from Vice President Leach. I'll turn it over to
Okay,
you, Gavin.
yeah, in your materials, you have the key indicators, financial indicators for the university, and pretty much from a revenue standpoint through fall, we've been on target or above target. State appropriation obviously is doing well. Tuition and fees were about 100,000 ahead of target. We are watching winter closely because we're seeing a little bit of a fall off as of now on potential enrollment, about 6.6%. So that might move us a little bit below in the winter, but I think overall for the year, we'd still end up fine on the overall budget to actual on tuition. Dining services and residence halls are running ahead of budget. They're at about dining services for fall is about $400,000 ahead of budget. And the residence halls are about $500,000 above budget. So those are in quite good shape for the year. Apartment revenues, we had estimated them to be full and they're still full. So they're right on target. So overall, from a financial indicator point, revenues are at or above target, and we'll just have to monitor where enrollment ends up for the winter semester. And obviously we'll update you on that as that occurs. The only other area on the expense side that's up a bit is utilities is up about 20% this year. Just with rates have gone up significantly. So we're keeping an eye on that also. But overall, things are okay for now. And again, we'll update you as the year goes on, especially in the winter comparables. Any questions on that part?
I want to make sure that I read the key indicators properly. On residence hall occupancy, we have 2,484 beds. I'll call it, right?
Yeah, absolute capacity.
number.
Yeah,
And all but 25 are taken.
that's correct.
That's excellent.
Yeah. And that's, we did some conversions, remember, of taking some dorm rooms, turn them to apartments and other things, and that helped fill those up. So that a lot of the adjustments we made ended up, luckily we adjusted it just about right because everything's really full right now, and we were able to get everybody a bed that needed a bed, right? So that was
So if we're effectively at 100% occupancy, does that you provide any comments on, is there a need for additional on-campus housing?
we're looking at that now. And part of it we're going to look at is if we look at winter, we're down 6.6. Now that rolls forward. We're not actually we could go back to taking some of those rooms that we converted to quasi apartments and turn them back into residence hall beds, and that would actually increase our capacity. So there's still capacity there. And Spalding, again, we turned it all to apartment style. So there's additional capacity we can create there. But I think we got to monitor, where and there's two factors going on, is even with all these things going on, and enrollment could potentially be down, and yet we could be at the same on-campus residence or higher, because we're up to about 43% of our students staying on campus now. Our history had been in the 30s. And so will that trend continue? And that's one thing we're looking at. What does the impact of the fall to winter change in the mix on who's on campus? And are there any other external factors that could, if we go start building, is that going to drive some things away? I still think we need to look at adding some capacity. And that's what we're looking at right now, because in the long term, we have some older apartments that we would probably take offline. So as we add capacity, we'd have the ability to pull back on some, so we won't have excess capacity sitting on our books. So that's part of the analysis we're going through right now. It's a long answer to your question, Bob, but it is.
I think it's a timely topic.
Yeah.
So Gavin, the housing issue in town. A number of students who may want to live off campus, but they look and they say, there's nothing here, so we're going to stay.
We're benefiting from that. And like I said, we have room to probably go up another 100 and some beds if we needed them on campus with the existing infrastructure. So we can handle that, but over this next year, we got to really build out and say, do we want to add some additional capacity, like an extension onto the woods, or do we probably more so we'd look at the apartment style? I think if we look at adding space on campus, because that attracts the upperclassmen anyway. And we have some other apartments like on Center Street that eventually need to come offline here. So I think it's a good opportunity for us to look at that. And that'll be something that's probably coming up over this next year, just to give you guys a heads up on that one. So
I have a similar question to Greg, and you addressed the availability aspect. What about the affordability aspect? Is it cheaper for them to stay on campus?
It is now, especially on our apartments. We used to, in Woodland, we used to be above the market a bit. And as the rates in Marquette have grown, we're actually we're affordable there. And then our Lincoln apartments and the Center apartments are highly affordable. There's high demand for that. Just we open the doors, they're coming in, and we've raised those rates a little bit so we can have more dollars to build an infrastructure. And so that's where when I've been doing a little extra increase on those, we're putting those aside in capital reserves for either additional beds or renovation of existing facilities. So that's been part of that plan going forward.
So the idea of more apartments. And again, I'm looking at probably our utility costs, even though they're going up, are much more affordable relative to any private sector apartment complex, because of your forward thinking relative to some of the buys that you did for gas and everything else.
We wouldn't want to do it unless it's really competitive, because off campus you're gonna have some really nice higher end apartments. I mean, that's clear. There's some nice ones out there now, but I think we'd want to build something that's sort of looks like the woods, but sort of similar, and keeping the price down to Woodland or below in that range. If we went too high end, I think that market comes and goes, especially with students. You don't want to. I don't think that would be the market we're in. So I think there's a complementary piece that can happen with what's going on in town as well as on campus. That help? Yeah. Remember a few years ago, we were looking at these numbers and we were getting a lot of occupant, excess occupant availability, and now all of a sudden it turned on a dime. So
significant, did a 180.
Yeah. in a very short window. I
University.
remember the COVID year when we had only 30% of the beds filled for a while. So next, okay, on that discussion, move on to facilities now.
Yes, sir, please.
Okay. I always like to show pictures, so that's so anyway, gonna walk you through where we're at on a number of our projects and then talk about and I remember the last time we met, I talked about modified plan where we combine the Harden College Business Project into one. I'll show you some renderings, and we've talked to all the deans and faculty in all the departments, and I think there's enough positives to move forward on that project. But I'm going to walk you through everything, and then I'm going to talk about Vandament Arena and renovating it to accommodate both volleyball and basketball, and that could create some positives for basketball on campus again, as well as community access to it. So first up, we'll walk through the projects. Jacobetti Complex Career and Engineering Technology Facility Project. What's it look like when it's done? And you can see there's been a lot of work on it already, and it's moving along quickly. They pretty much have the exterior enclosed, not all with finalized materials, but closed with heat pumping into it, so the construction workers can keep moving along. You're going to be seeing that later on a tour. But so far, everything's on budget and on time on that project. And we're pretty happy with how it's proceeding. And again, that one will be finishing and ready for classes in August of 23. So it still looks good on that. The Health and Wellness Building. That one's moving along. You can see the final renderings, and you can see we're already putting brick on the exterior. We got steel infrastructure up. They've made a lot of progress on 40% of the brickwork done. Electrical and mechanical are being worked on, and they're getting ready to start installing drywall in some of the areas. And this project is on schedule to be completed this summer. Hopefully in June by the looks of it, and that would give the health center and counseling center staff time to get acclimated before students start arriving in the fall. Next up, we have the Bear Center, and that one's moving along pretty quick. In fact, they're just finishing some exterior work, but the furniture for this project's going to be moved in on Monday next week. So furniture will all be in. They'll be able to finish the exterior, and the staff will start moving in the first week of January into this facility. So all ready to go, and we've stayed within the revised budget. I don't think we have any major issues right now, other than there's a couple of doors for the exterior that we're just waiting to arrive. And if they don't arrive, we can still open it, but we're hoping that they get there so we can finalize those. Next up, we have the Harden Hall Northern Enterprise Center project that we've discussed about getting creative and looking at, could we combine this project and make it work for all parties, College of Business, as well as the Arts and Sciences departments that were going to be impacted moving out of Grease Hall, and as well as the library itself. And so we went to work on it after we talked about it with the architects. We sat down with each of the deans, and then subsequently to the deans, we had Zoom sessions with the deans and all the faculty from their departments. And overall, not everybody's going to get everything they want when you do a combined project, but I think it's still turning into overall a positive project. That talking to Dale and the others, that it looks like it's a good project to move forward with, because it does achieve the majority of the goals that we set forward with on both of the projects. And we have some renderings of what we're going to do is on the front end. I told you we would create an addition onto the front of Harden Hall facing into the academic mall. And then that would accommodate more space. Add a couple of floors, and that would add for College of Business and the Arts and Sciences, and then it would reconfigure the other spaces. And so this is what Harden Hall would look like when it gets modified. And that would be the look inside the academic mall. That's not a final rendering, but as you can see, it's a pretty significant change from what it looks like now. We'd create some different, we'd turn the stairwells and open them up a bit so there's more light coming into it. It would create easy access to all floors, make it more welcoming. And we shifted the elevators, we created more prominent entrances, and then each of the floors are getting modified to really accommodate sort of that main street down the middle, informal seating areas, as well as faculty offices. And on the second floor, we'll be adding classrooms for the College of Business, as well as a general purpose classroom. So it's turned into a pretty interesting project, and I think it's a great use of Harden Hall and expanding and really modernizing the look of Harden Hall. I think it'll be a major difference between what's there now. And again, this won't be the exact final rendering. We're still working on some tweaks, but it's pretty close. Again, Harden Hall will have that nice open stairwell in the middle for the library on the main floor when you walk in. What will happen is you walk in on that main floor, we're also cutting the floors in the main hallway and all the way up to the top. So it'll go through the second and third floor. So you can actually see up to the second and third floor in two locations on each floor, or 3 locations on each floor. And that'll create a more connected feeling between all the floors. So you can always see where you want to go, and it connects the students and others to the areas. So I think it has a lot of positives for bringing the students together from all areas. The benefit for the faculty being in that building is they will either be teaching in classrooms that we're adding into Harden Hall, or most of their other classes are in Jamrich, but they'll be completely connected to. So they'll never have to actually leave the building to go to class. So I think it'll probably create greater activity in Harden Hall, and a really nice environment for connecting the students with the faculty, and and for learning and studying. So I think it's a pretty big positive all the way around. Some conceptual drawings of like this is that sort of main street down the middle for the College of Business on the 3rd floor. I always think of it as the 2nd because I go on the main floor and I walk up a flight, and they keep reminding me it's the 3rd floor because there's the bottom floor basement. But you'll have a nice entrance into the College of Business, and their floor would make a little more corporate like, whereas the 3rd floor with the arts and sciences faculty would be just a little bit of different look to give them some distinguishing characteristics. One of the things we're looking at is the demarcation between the library section will be on the 2nd floor along with College of Business. And so one of the concepts we put together is it's like a fireplace. It won't be a gas fireplace, but sort of that electric look. And it'll be a separation between the 2 areas, but it's called like a fire lounge area to students can sit in an informal setting to study and gather together. And that'll be on both sides. And so that's one of the concepts we have together. Again, we're going to be going through a lot of programming yet with the faculty, but we think it's turning into a pretty nice project overall. Then you can see this is the floor layout for the main floor of the library, where on the blue area is the main part of the library. The sort of greenish yellow area would be where the learning commons is, where the tutoring for campus takes place. We're consolidating all the tutoring services there in the front end. And again, you can see the gray area is the sort of Main Street hallway, where you can come in from the woods on one side up and walk right through the library to Jamrich Hall. And then those little dotted rectangles in that area are how you can look up to all the floors from that area. So then you have that separation between learning commons and the library, which a lot of the students are there for the library. You can still use the learning commons when the tutoring activities aren't occurring. The next floor up, you can see where the College of Business area is pretty much sort of the green area on your left-hand side, and then the library functions are on the right-hand side. So there's a pretty big tie in there, and we're able to accommodate most of services that were previously there, when it was just a standalone project, obviously narrowed down in some aspects, but we tried to accommodate as much of it as we could. And then this is the added floor. We have a partial second floor now. It'll be a wider second floor. And then this is a top floor where the arts and sciences departments, there'll be 4 departments up there sharing the space. And they wanted to stay together to start with. With the other project, they were going to be separated. Some are going to be in Jamrich, some in the other building. In this case, we're able to combine them all together and they can share support services. We have some informal learning spaces for the students, as well as some library spaces that they currently have in Greece. So we're able to accommodate all of that.
So Gavin, this is a renovation and this is a new building. I mean, it's kind of a hybrid.
Yeah.
It's a little bit of both.
And
Have we asked for any student input on this? Is there a way for students to?
we do usually have students on the advisory committees as we go through it. We just had time. We actually got the renderings about a week just before the board meeting, and Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday this week, we had time to Zoom with all of the faculty on this. So we had 4 different sessions to try to get through the faculty on this project, but we haven't had time to sit down with a student group. And normally that will also come during the process where we have them on the advisory panels for reviewing the overall project when we get into the detailed design of each of the floors.
Do you find that the students sometimes really give you some feedback that you say, wow, we really missed the vote on that? And
Oh, they will. Yeah.
the one thing that in looking at it, that it looks a little, I'm gonna say, Spartan. Is that just a rendering?
Yeah, those renderings were done in a week, so they'll have time to really modify those as we go on. That was just putting a concept together, so we had something to look at. So,
Thanks.
yeah. And this, by doing this is what we did. Remember the budgets, because construction costs we had gone from the 2 projects being 31.6 million up to almost $45 million. This brings it back to that $31.6 million target that we had started with. So that's how it's enabling us to continue to move forward.
Sometimes a stress like that can actually come out with a better price.
Yeah, create a lot of stress. Yeah, but we think in the end we did. A number of the faculty did tell us that they feel like this is actually a better project than the original. We have others that would still like to separate, but
I like the way that the library becomes more of a central part of the university by this.
yeah, I think it'll attract more and more people to the library, and it's more interactive. You have the student connectiveness with all the areas. I think there's a lot of benefits that can come
I
from
was a librarian for a while there, so I tend
it.
to
Yeah.
look at this and say.
And again, there's still work to be done on it, especially on the programming side. But assuming you guys are positive with us moving forward in this direction, we're within that original budget you'd approved. We'll start the programming. The plan would be to start working on this summer. Unless I don't know if I don't think.
Construction timeframe, 15.
At
least 15, yeah. We're
Yeah.
working that out in construction.
least 15. We're working out those details.
So it'll be 12.
Yeah.
Well, maybe the other way.
Bob sounding like me, Jim and Kathy.
Based on opportunities of when we're able to move, like we can only really move the library in the summer. So it might be pushed forward depending on how things shake out. Like May of 25.
Possibly. Yeah, you can appreciate when you look at this, there's a lot more involved than just renovating the library. We got
Yeah.
a 3rd and a 4th floor to be added. So there's a lot of structure that we gotta get worked.
Yeah, you're gonna have a logistical
You bet.
challenge here.
Yeah.
Jacob said he was gonna be legit, so.
Yeah.
Top of this is probably gonna be.
Especially based on where we're at right now. We, actual construction probably wouldn't start till late summer, early fall. And with the structure that needs to be added in the winter conditions. That's why it might extend it a little past the 15 months.
So as a committee, seem like this is an okay direction to move in this project?
I'm getting that sense.
Okay.
I'm seeing heads nodding up and down.
Okay.
Alexis, you're good.
And again, the project budget remained the same as when we started, the 31.6 between the two.
At last, thank you again for the creative activity of your team.
Yeah, thanks. I have a great team I work with. And deans and provosts have given a lot of great input on this too, so. Real quick, I know we're beyond our time schedule. I'm sorry about that, but we're also, in addition to that, we're starting working on the academic labs. We've hired a CM and architect. We're starting. We had department meetings beginning in November, and they'll continue a lot more into the winter semester. And again, to add offices as well as labs in the onto the Weston and the science building. Ice making equipment, that one will begin this spring and be ready before hockey season next fall. That'll narrow the rink as well as new boards that are safer, and plexiglass will be a little safer from a concussion standpoint. There's some newer technology that's better for the athletes on the ice. And this is all within budget, the 6.5 that was approved. The next one is, I brought this up too, about the potential to convert Vandament Arena to accommodate both basketball and volleyball. And so we've been doing a lot of work on that with our architects and with athletics, and feel like we found a way to make this work. And this is what the concept would be: is you'd have a U-shaped stadium that would seat about 1,700 fans. There'd be some courtside seating, behind it, sort of we always have that bar area by the court. That'll still be available. It'll modernize the look of the facility, and it will create a venue where we can accommodate both those sports. What that does is, there's been a lot of issues with transitioning the ice to basketball and back again. And sometimes we have a couple of flips on a weekend. It's challenging getting labor to do that work right now, as well as there's continuous to be damage to the floors and other things that we have to deal with as that tends to occur. But the other thing it does is, two other things that happen is we lose rental revenue because we have a floor on there, and usually we have ice rentals during those time periods. Then, because it's down, our hockey team has practice in Lakeview, so we're paying rent to Lakeview. And then just the cost of transitioning the floor, it just reduces the overall revenue opportunity. And as we look at between savings and lost revenue, you have the ice conflict costs with Lakeview tends to be 16 to 23,000 a year. The basketball floor maintenance is 12 to 32,000 a year. Floor ice turnover with the adjusted rates that are going to happen in February for minimum wage is going to be about 50 to 65,000 a year. And lost ice rental is 23 to 30,000 a year. So if we look at sort of taking an internal loan and using those savings and rental revenue to pay itself back, is it would take about 16 to 17 year payback, but then you get a bigger benefit on, I think it can be more attractive for getting the high school basketball games back here, regional state playoffs back here. It's just a better fan experience in that type of facility. And it's something that the community's talked about for many years. They just don't go to the Berry Center for basketball. I mean, it's not the best complex. Bob can probably comment on that. I know he's heard it for years. So the time period is within a framework of what, if we took a loan out, there'd probably be a similar time period, but I think we'd just do an internal loan and use the savings to pay that back. But I think it's you can see some other rendering looks, like close up for volleyball, how it would look. You get the basketball. When we put basketball in there, it's an easy transition. just has a great, I think, look and feel, as well as inviting for the community to attend the games. And the athletics area honestly believes attendance for basketball is significantly increased by being in that type of facility. They're closer to the action. They're right on top of it. A nice feel to the arena. And it's about a $2.5 million overall project to renovate that. When we would do it would be to start after volleyball season next year, and then have it ready for the following year. So, and that one you'll see in the list for recommendations, the 2.5 million. Also in there with related back to the science labs is $550,000 for a science for the designer work on the science labs. Sorry, I'm so far beyond schedule now. We got a little bit delay, but Bob, turn it back over to you. We would need a motion on those two projects, the Vandament as well as the others.
That's a question, Mr. Pitt.
Yes.
On those labs, are those the ones that we toured a while back that were, okay, so.
Yeah, so we're going to put an addition onto Weston Hall and the science building to add 6 additional labs, as well as faculty offices on top of that, because again, we weren't meeting their space. So that was part of the plan to grow that out for that area.
Visually, those are the ones stacked one on top of another.
Yeah. Yeah, no, when we're working through what would work best engineering wise and architecturally for that.
Yeah, I think a good way to describe it, to answer your question, Chair Young, is that this is a culmination of our I'll call it our work, or our look into, the state of our labs that we did I think it was last summer.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, it was great. I mean, because that one room we went in was so small, not all of us could even fit it.
Right.
So,
Yeah, with the 20-year-old equipment. Yeah, so this is going to be, it's nice to see an investment of this type into our academic facilities. In my opinion, at least. I'm excited to see what the various departments that'll be using those labs can achieve with them.
Yeah, and that one is an overall, this is just a design fee, 550,000. That's an overall $11.7 million project that we had listed that before in the facilities plan that we had approved a while back, but this is just a design piece of that.
What's the timing on this overall?
Jim and Kathy, do you want
Yeah,
to?
so this is, we've started the program. We met with the departments, the 2 department heads, and then over the course of the winter semester, we'll meet with departments and faculty. Right now, this is envisioned to probably be a 3-story structure. With the construction manager, we've talked about different bid packages. So early in the spring, we can get the steel and concrete bid out, and with a hope of fall construction. So just like we did with the Health and Wellness Center, steel and concrete would be bid out early in the spring. So it arrived late in the fall, so we could get it up and erected and the space enclosed so we could work through the winter. That's what we're looking for right now.
It's aggressive, but good.
It is
Yeah.
aggressive. Yep.
But that's great.
Based on where we are right now, it is
Yeah.
aggressive.
So quickly, going back to the proposal before us with respect to the volleyball basketball court, a couple of comments I wanted to share with the committee and the audiences. I've had the opportunity to meet with Athletic Director Comley several times to discuss this, and really wanted to get confirmation that, number one, this is what the coaches in the athletic department wanted, and also that it was the right solution, and it wasn't another Band-Aid. When Barry was built, so many different events and sports were trying to be built into its design to accommodate all these different sports, that there were a lot of compromises made. And if you ever go to a hockey game and try to feel your knees after you've been sitting in the seats for 3 hours, you know what I'm talking about. So Athletic Director Comley has assured me that he's a big supporter of this project. He feels it's going to be very, very beneficial for all the athletic programs involved. And it's a significant cost, $2.5 million. And it's a fair question to ask, is that the right use of university resources at this time? And I've asked Vice President Leach and his staff, they've done a lot of work on this. I didn't have to ask. They were ahead of us in trying to quantify the payback period. And depending on how you measure things, the payback period could be anywhere from 10 years to more. But what that doesn't measure is the qualitative benefits that we're going to get out of this. Things such as, and you talk to the coaches, all the coaches are in support of this, including the basketball coaches. Recruitment of athletes, the fact that you're practicing on the same court that you're going to play on, which you'll never be able to tell whether it affects the win-loss record, but it's certainly the athletic experience. The community and regional impact, Gavin touched on it, used to be we hosted the regional finals, for example, in high school basketball tournaments, and they attracted probably crowds of 2,000 plus people. Tammy remembers. It was standing room only. And it was a great way to recruit students, general student population to the university, because you're bringing in all these high schoolers. For a lot of them, it was their first time on a university campus, and it was on Northern's campus, and they're exposed to all this positive energy and everything, all the excitement that comes with tournament basketball play. And we've lost that when we went over to Barry, when we moved basketball into Barry. So we'll never be able to measure, I don't think, all these benefits, but I sincerely feel that the benefits, the return on the investment here is pretty significant, and the payback period is going to be significantly less than 10 years. I support this. And I just wanted to share those thoughts with the committee before we took the vote.
Thanks for that. Thanks for that color, Bob.
Okay, we need a motion then on that and the design budget.
Yes, so now I will ask for the motion to recommend that the board approve these projects over the $250,000 threshold.
I'll make that motion that we approve the projects over $250,000 as presented.
Second,
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Last thing on our agenda, and we can cover this very quickly, is temporary liquor licenses.
And we have two of them, May 5th and May 25th, the senior show for School of Art and Design, and then Dancing with Stars UP Hospice Foundation. So we need the board to approve those.
Do I have a motion?
You have a motion. I'd like to move that we recommend to the board to approve the temporary liquor licenses as discussed.
Support.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. That's the final items on our agenda. I'll just quickly ask if committee members have any other comments before we adjourn. We go to the order.
I would like to say, I think this will be your last formal finance committee as chair, Bob. So thank you very much. Appreciate all of your hard work and efforts in that.
Thank you. Okay.
I'd also like to say thank you for working. It's been great working with you as chair, Bob. Over the last few years, we worked with you for a long time as you've been on the board. So
I think you guys are a team.
yeah, I've been really great working with them.
I would just close by really, I think I did serve 7 out of 8 years on the finance committee.
Yeah.
Somehow there's a 1 year. Yeah. But I want to thank everybody in the finance and accounting department for all their good work. Jamie, Rebecca, Matt, Gavin, Deb, for putting up with me and my keeping me organized. I really appreciate that. It's been a lot of fun. I think we've accomplished a lot over these years.
Oh, yeah. Think of all the projects we've done.
Yeah, I was counting up to over $200 million
Yeah.
in capital projects. I should also add Jim and Kathy to the list of thank you people I owe my gratitude to. So thanks. It's been a lot of fun.
Bob, you should be bringing up that you were also auditing way back in the day.
Yeah.
You have a lot of experience there.
Yeah, back in the day when we spent a lot of time with internal audit. Which kind of prompted the question to Jill today, and I should thank Jill as well. 8 years, we have an exceptional internal audit department. Thanks to Jill. Okay, enough of that. The meeting's adjourned.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair, and thanks, Bob, for all your